Dirty Scrap Podcast.
Hey, Julio, good morning.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good, how you doing?
Doing fine. Thank you for making the time to be in here with us with another episode of Dirty Scrap, the aluminum podcast. And as we already talked about this couple of times, but the idea of the podcast is to dig into the sustainability point of view of the aluminum recycling industry. But today, and for me, it's very special because we are digging into the innovation on sustainable packaging. That is a complete different industry that I don't understand very well, but hopefully you will help me to drive into these different type of approaches on the industry. And I can see that we have you, Dan, and Jeff here. And just a quick introduction, I know you, Dan, being in the industry for a long time. You have a lot of engineering background, but also you have a lot of, let's say, invention. You are like an inventor, right? So you have, as far as I know, patents and different stuff that you've been working with. And Jeff, I know you have a lot of experience, more over than 30 years, right? On the food industry. I'm not saying that you're old. I'm just saying that you just have a lot of experience.
You did a good job not calling him old.
But I know that you've been working with big companies, right? Like Colgate and all these big players in the industry. And now you guys are just looking into a different direction and trying to make a difference in this industry that is moving so fast forward on the green path. So before we go on all the topics that I want to talk is, let me know more about your background. Maybe we can start with you, Jeff. Let me know how you get into the point of, let's say, that the point that you are working right now on all these innovations. How life bring you here?
Yeah, sure. So as you mentioned, I do have over 30 years of experience in the industry, coming up actually on 35 next year. So my background was actually in packaging through Michigan State University. So I have a packaging engineer degree and put that to use working in the packaging engineering development space with M&M Mars initially for my first few years of my career, and then went over into the commercial side, the procurement side on supply chain, and was working with Mars for several years there, for about almost 10 years actually. And a lot of what I did in that time period was also had a lot of different innovative type things. And Mars was a very sustainable company back 30 some years ago, which was kind of novel at that time. They were doing things that other companies weren't even considering, as in returning secondary packaging back to suppliers to be reused back in operations, finding ways with candy bar wrappers to even recycle those at that time. So I've had a lot of history relative to both the innovation and the sustainability side. After leaving from Mars, I went to go work for a few other large companies, Colgate, Palmolive, Kraft Foods, and then joined the fun side of the business, which was the beer side. I joined Miller about 15 years ago. So I went from the candy to the beer. So it's all been pretty good in that space in between there. So and during that time period, again, was involved doing a lot of things on a global type level in the packaging space, metal packaging specifically. Was doing that for the SAB Miller company globally. And innovation was something that also kind of followed me around in those roles too. Even the aluminum bottles at that time when I first started working for Miller was something that I was involved in, first bringing some of the first commercial applications for aluminum bottles for beverage to the industry. So it's always had an exciting part for me to see the innovation side materialize and come to realization. And that's why when the opportunity came about, I left from industry back in 2016 and started doing consulting work and joined up here with Canovation about 2.5 years ago. And for me, this was extremely exciting because this is really one of the first innovations that I've seen that is not kind of just a novelty kind of knockoff thing, but this is really impactful in terms of the change that it can make for industry, and it fits within industry so well. So it's really exciting, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to talk more about this with you today.
Oh no, thank you. And what about you, Dan? Inventor. I mean, that's a huge word, right? Because back in Colombia, I used to be like an inventor as well with my dad. I don't know if you know these guys, but maybe you don't know, of course. But back in Colombia, I participated in a reality show called The Greatest Inventor of Colombia. We were like 250 people, and I gained the fourth place because we create some, products that at the end the huge companies just step on us, took out of the market. But
of course,
it was a really nice and very fun, let's say, journey. So I know that invention is something that is not very often, you cannot see it very often. Maybe right now you can see more things coming out of internet and everything, but back in the past, people that was doing inventions was like the crazy guys, right? Around the block. So tell me more about your crazy background. For sure it's going to be very interesting.
Well, Julio, just to give some clarity here, when you introduced us, you said that I was a part of the industry. I'm not. I only became a part of the industry since I started working on this project here that we have in front of us. I'm
Right.
more of a product designer, so to speak, and I only fell into that by happenstance. So my background
Okay.
is in mechanical engineering, and I became an entrepreneur because of my family. My family had an FAA-approved repair station
Okay.
for working on aircrafts. And we did aircraft interior refurbishment, conversions between cargo and commercial and executive. And that was instrumental in not only inspiring me to be an entrepreneur and being a go-getter. My dad always said that it's always much better to be the head of a mouse than the tail of a lion. Doesn't matter how small you are. If you're in charge, you're in charge.
Right.
Um,
Definitely.
it also exposed me to a lot of different disciplines. When you're working on interiors and you're trying to make your client happy, the things that you have to get done aren't just related to engineering. I'm not a master of, but I'm familiar with carpentry, metalworking, avionics, electronics. I can
Okay.
sew, I can do laminates. We got into a little bit of everything during our time there. And unfortunately, 9/11 wasn't kind to the organization. The industry really slowed down in the, how do you say, the elective sort of expenses, the discretionary expenses. If the planes could fly with an ugly interior.
Right.
So my family wound down that company, and I ended up doing custom wheel designs for the automotive industry. Basically wheels, aftermarket wheels that people purchase to dress up their vehicles, and eventually in the OEM space, they did create some designs for Ford and General Motors. One of the ones that I'm most proud of is the latest Harley Davidson special edition truck for the Ford F-150.
Oh, nice.
So that was work for a family-owned business, successful distributor down here in South Florida. And working through them, I did get exposed to, again, more manufacturing discipline. Here, I got into molding, aluminum molding for the wheels, spin and forgings,
Okay.
spin forging, and regular aluminum forgings. And a little bit at a time, I began to notice that this aluminum material kept following me around, first with the airplane, then with the wheels, and
Right.
eventually with what we're working here today. So while I was doing wheels, I recognized that there was an opportunity for innovation. And it was really the first idea I had where I was able to gain a financial back to the IP protection that's obviously needed if you want to be an
Right.
inventor, monetize the idea. So I started up a business to to try to promote and develop, not in that order, a wheel technology that I came up with. It's reinvented the wheel. I can show you. I have some prototypes in the office. But in any case, it was really exciting. It was a great looking wheel. It did provide some manufacturing advantages, but it never made it to market, at least in the way that I was wanting to have it come to market, because I was
Why?
never well, I was out looking for investors, and I came across a think tank that was working on different technology, wall anchors, thin wall pipe couplings,
Okay.
and whatnot. One of the things that they wanted to innovate upon was resealability in can. So a think
Hmm.
tank, if you're an inventor, as you well know, you're one yourself, you can't really invent something unless somebody points out a problem. That's
Right.
when your creativity, that's when you're inspired, that's when you start coming out
Definitely.
with a solution. You can't have a solution without a problem, right? And so this
Or
think
you can
tank,
create the problem and then try to create the solution. That is not the best way,
I
right?
met a few mechanics that do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this think tank, they noticed that I was familiar with IP, that I had already been involved with product design and development. I was already involved with manufacturing to a certain degree. And they brought me on board. They brought me on board to go ahead and start managing IP and engineering side of the products that they had going. And working
Okay.
through some of their concept, I realized, while having absolutely zero experience in metal packaging, I realized that, you really couldn't make certain things that were being suggested I did whatever research could be done 12 or so years ago. Google was not what it was today. And I came across some concepts that were novel, and we applied for patents. And if you're familiar with that process, it is a bit of a gamble.
It is.
And little by little, we began to learn that we had struck upon something that had a lot of potential. And that potential was picked up on by individuals that really did eventually make it there. It takes an army. It takes an army. It really does take community building. Having a great idea is having a great idea, but you have to build a business around it. And then you got to get people to believe, including this gentleman here. Like as a reminder, I'm not part of the industry. The industry has, however, welcomed. It's been an honor. It's been a journey, and I'm happy to share it with you and your audience.
Maybe the industry was chasing you for a long time to the point that
I would chase me. It runs in his veins. I always say the aluminum runs through his veins. Yeah.
Right. What is the what do you think is the difference between having an invention that someone wants to put money on it and someone just doesn't? What can make the difference?
Personality and good looks of the inventor.
Definitely, that helps a lot.
The business case, and I have met a lot of great minds, creative minds that are passionate about what they've come up with.
Right.
But it makes it so that they become blinded by the fact that you cannot monetize. It's a great idea. It's phenomenal, but you can't monetize. Or it's too much of a niche product or a niche solution, or it's only intended for a certain audience, is really what niche. But there's so much that goes into something that actually succeeds in making it to market that it does incorporate a bit of good luck, right?
Definitely.
Preparation, opportunity, that's all great, but you do need to be a little lucky. And again, I think what we're talking about here today does incorporate a little bit of all those elements.
Great. So saying that, I want to jump into the Canovation let's say approach, but before we're going in that direction, I want to understand your philosophy and I want your feedback about superior metal recycling packaging, because I know what we are dealing right now is, okay, we need to move to, let's say, metal packaging, or we need to try to keep improving plastics, or what is the difference, right? Because at the end, I think what you're doing is saying, hey, we have this alternative right now. We don't need to keep using plastics, because plastics, you cannot recycle forever because you will lose properties and you are creating a lot of CO2 emissions, definitely. And I mean, you can throw a bottle of plastic into the street and 500 years later, you will find it there. The plastic is something that you cannot use very let's not like aluminum, for example. Aluminum, you can recycle aluminum as much as you want, and the mechanical properties is going to remain there forever, right? And also you can make more money out of metal than plastic. So tell me about this superior metal, let's say, packaging approach. How do you see these guys?
Well, with cans, Julio, the thing is that they're a great package to begin with, and they've always been.
Right.
I mean, they've been around forever. You know, people are familiar with it. There's a lot of value that it has, and what it does really well is it preserves food and beverages both alike.
Definitely.
Really well. The issue is that once you open it up, if you ever think in the concept of opening a can for food or beverage, you have to consume everything out of the can at that moment in time, or else you have to put it in some other container of some sort, because it lacks one thing, that resealability. And that's really the function element that we're enhancing to the metal industry, is by bringing resealability. Now we have a voice to be able to compete with things like plastics that have had that functionality, that capability of resealability. But what's really unique about this also is that it's economical and scalable to compete with plastics also on the economic side of it. So it's not just the function and the convenience that we're adding to the can, we're making it so that it's also economical for the consumer to have that benefit and enjoy the additional benefit that comes. And then there's a whole host, and we'll talk about those, of other benefits that our innovation's bringing. But that brings us to the forefront to have that discussion on sustainability, because now with all the benefits that you mentioned already that aluminum has in terms of the circular economy, people jump into dumpsters to get this stuff out. They're not jumping in to get a plastic bottle out, but they will jump in to get a beverage can out of a dumpster, because of the inherent value that's there, and it's always been there.
Jeff, just to build upon this, Jeff realized a while ago that cans really do have a great life store, but
Right.
there's something missing in between. Their ability to be recycled infinitely, the efficiencies that manufacturing already has built into the process, the machine that makes them. If you look at historical charts of how much aluminum has been able to be taken out of the can itself, I mean, these are basically aluminum bags, is what we end up with today. And there's a law of diminishing returns. They're paper thin already. You can't really go much thinner. They're already made at 4,000 cans per minute. It's the second fastest manufactured product on the planet.
Yep.
It has a great beginning of life story. It also, as far as the consumer is concerned, is something that's already known and trusted as a packaging solution. And you can tell that by the last 5 or so years when COVID struck, and how it is that can sales increased. Because psychologically, consumers are already accustomed to having and relying on a certain type of packaging for long-term storage. It's understood.
Right.
Nobody needed to be educated. When COVID struck and nobody was going out, their pantry was full of cans, food, beverage, whatever the case may be, because of shelf life, because of storage efficiency, the way they stack and store really neat. And that's something
Right.
that's seldom found in other materials and packaging style. And then when you're done with your can, like Jeff pointed out, everybody wants the residual waste, the residual material that's left over is not waste. It
Nope.
has value, and it has value that's significantly higher than the next best set of recyclable materials, HDPE and PET. Is there value there? Yes, but it doesn't compact as well as crushed and baled metal. It does create, so you have that transportation consideration, and you're really only getting, don't quote me on this, but let's
Plus a
say
fraction.
$400 a ton. You're getting more than 1,000 a ton out of this. If I was in recycling, I wouldn't accept any other material. In fact, don't quote us on this, but it could be argued that metal recycling, both aluminum and steel, subsidizes the recycling of the other material stream.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I mean, the recycling infrastructure is based on aluminum or metals recycling. Definitely. I think plastic is not the way to make your scrap jar profitable. It's metals, definitely. And the market is just going crazy because right now it's even more expensive to buy aluminum scrap than to buy primary aluminum out of the market. So definitely the recycling rates are going up. Obviously, people is paying more attention to how to get involved into all this green wave on the aluminum life cycle. But also, I think beverage cans is something that people is, okay, what is the recycling rates right now and why we are not able to improve those? Now, saying that, let me ask you something, because I know we will talk about the can reseal here, right? And this is the point of, I think you're are innovating in the industry. So I want to understand a little bit better how this works, but also let me understand what is the difference between your can and the can that I can buy in the market, and why maybe people should turn their heads into your product.
Well, if I may, I wasn't finished with the life story of the can.
Oh, sorry.
We talked about the beginning. No, this is a great segue though, Julio, because we talked about the beginning of the can, how it's made and how it has advantages for consumers and industry.
Right.
And then what happens at its end of life? There's value there. People pick it up from the ground because there's money to be made. What happens in between, however, is what we're trying to address with can. When the consumer opens up their can, they pour that product out or they drink it, can is in the garbage or then the recycling bin, right? Okay.
Right.
There is no consumption life cycle for cans.
Preserving it after you open it at all. Yeah.
Right. You open up a beverage can, you drink it, you toss it. You don't reclose it and put it in the refrigerator, unless you're Jeff's wife's, in which case she has a half a dozen Coke cans that are going flat. Oh my gosh. Why don't they just drink the one they already opened? It is a mystery. But in any case, resealability is something that has been traditionally desirable in cans. It is the holy grail of canning, sort of. And that's evidenced by all of the innovation that has gone into can resealability. This isn't the first time somebody has had a crack at it. It's just can resealability ends up looking like a lot of things. For instance, a little flippy cap widget that you put on top and take off the little hole.
Mm-hmm.
a cap that you screw and unscrew, but at the end of the day, what you call that's called an aluminum bottle. That's a metal bottle. You can make a metal bottle, so that's resealability there. Or you could incorporate some sort of plastic valve assembly.
Right.
We're familiar with some of those. From an engineering perspective, we're fans. That product belongs in the space station, not in a single-use container. There's a lot of great engineering that went into that, but it doesn't address, it addresses the resealability question, doesn't address the sustainability.
Nope.
But it does demonstrate that resealability is a key conversation to be had when talking about metal packaging.
And the thing that we really enhance versus the standard can today is that your standard can is made from two alloys that when it's made today. So you're using a 3000 series for the body and you're using a 5000 series of 5182 for that pop top that goes on there. And you're probably quite familiar, Julio. I'm certain that, that does create some challenges relative to
yeah,
the
definitely
industry as a whole, because you can reconstitute, put back into the can body up to 100% recycled content. That's possible. It's doable. People have done it to a certain extent when availability of recycled material is there, which I think you hit on already is already a challenge for the industry. But beyond that, the 5182 alloy, that's not a possibility. You're unable to get to 100% recycled content because of that alloy need there. Our technology, although we've begun our development using 5182 because we've been trying to keep things center lane to how the technologies that make ends today are utilizing the same. We're using 5182 to do our development at this stage, but we have a really strong belief that we can use a 3000 series alloy for our top of the container with the can reseal twist off. And that would open up the opportunity for 100% recycled content, a beverage container made from 100% metal. And that is huge relative to not only the idea of getting 100% recycled content, but even with some incremental increase in weight that we put on the container, we would effectively reduce the carbon footprint of a beverage container somewhere around 20 to 30% versus where it is today by increasing to 100% recycled content. And today it's about 70%, and you're plateaued out at that point because of the 5182 alloy that's there. So this opens up a whole new doorway for opportunity there.
Totally agree. And you just made a really good point, because at the end, what we want to understand from your side is how this will impact the packaging industry. But it's not just impacting the packaging industry, it's also impacting the recycling industry, because you are helping the industry to go in an easier direction. Because you're right, because we have different type of alloys, we need to or invest more in sorting and crushing equipment. That is huge investment for the industries right now. Or we need to deal with cross-contamination, or we need to have more labor to separate everything. That is not the best way to do it. And as you just said, the CO2 emissions will be in this level because we have two different ways to recycle one product. Now, saying that, how do you think you can implement the same alloy in the same container, and how this is going to impact the packaging industry? What is your vision for the next years?
Regarding the alloy, Julio, there's already technologies out there that are a singular alloy. Basically, body stock is what we're trying to make. For the members of your audience that are not aware, the can body is made out of a 3000 series aluminum. The can ends are made out of a 5000 series aluminum. It's a little bit stiffer. Not a metallurgist, so I'll spare everybody the wrong data. But the thing to remember here is that instead of removing the components of the alloy in the 5000 series to reconstitute the body stock, it's a lot less expensive to add a little bit of primer. So even though cans can be 100% recycled, a can only averages around 70% recycled content. You need to add aluminum primary to reconstitute the body.
Definitely.
Right. The reason why we are able to have a path that gets us to a singular alloy, specifically body stock, is because we do not need the panel stiffness required for the score line residual, the tab, the rivet, basically the functional elements of the can end. Our components are basically threaded parts that screw together. Imagine taking two can ends and screwing them together for resealability. In fact, one of the configurations for can reseal does just that, does a great job at illustrating what I just brought up. This maintains the pop top. Obviously, this is not a part of the single alloy conversation, but
Right.
this does illustrate what the crux of the innovation. We've taken the conventional ends and made them deep enough to add threading.
Okay.
And because we did that, this is what that part looks like before it gets put on the can. During the filling process, you fill your container, you put these two components together, and then you mechanically seam that lip and you end up with the finished can. Okay. What I wanted to show you here is that these two parts, both the can end and the cap that's compatible with it, they're made using the same processes that exist today to make your conventional pop top can all over the planet
At 3,000 plus a minute.
at 3,000 plus a minute, 400 billion worth of just aluminum beverage can. There's more billions made for all sorts of different aerosols, food containers, et cetera, et cetera. So the infrastructure for manufacturing, the infrastructure for recycling, the full value chain, the circular economy that everyone's already talking about, it's already in place globally. All we're doing is modifying the end components, the lid components that go on the can. And instead of having a rivet and a score and a pop top, they instead have threading. And so because of that threading, this is the component that gets added onto your
Right.
can. So what's interesting about this is that what you end up with is an aluminum bottle. It's an aluminum bottle that's being manufactured using standard conventional can manufacturing method. And that's where you find your efficiencies and the ability for this technology to scale into a solution which provides an alternative to single-use rigid packaging, rigid plastic packaging. Okay. So what is the efficiency specific? There's a 10-to-1 ratio, right? And Jeff could speak to this in a little more detail.
Okay.
Actually, why don't you go ahead and go with it?
So in the manufacturing of can, a typical line, which is about a $75 to $150 million investment, depending upon if you're putting a plant around it or just investing into the equipment, will output about 1 billion cans. In contrast to that, an in manufacturing module will output 4 billion ends in one operation, or an investment of under 50 million. So the investment of what we're looking at is only impacted to the in manufacturing, because if you're a brand owner, you still source the same cans you've always sourced from the same location as you desire. And our technology then is more effective and efficient to do this, where they can make multi-billions in one centralized location and send it out from that one central location. Can plants historically have always been built within about 150 miles or less of a filling operation to maximize the transport of air, basically, when you ship these.
Right.
So the ends on the other side of it, and that's one of the great things with what we've also maintained here, is the nestability of our part. The way that ends are shipped today, they're very compact, and you can fill out a trailer very easily and weigh it out before you actually fill it out. Unlike the can body itself, you basically are always going to fill out a trailer before you weigh it out. So this makes it very compactful to be able to ship from a centralized location anywhere globally with our technology, versus trying to make an aluminum bottle, for example, which would have to a special line of investment and be shipped with air from very limited production.
Right. How do you see the market reacting to this approach, and why maybe people will choose this, let's say, option against the aluminum bottle? Because at the end, okay, we that are in the industry, okay, we understand what you just said, and this is I will say that this is the innovation behind Canovation, right? But saying that, why people will choose this approach instead of a aluminum bottle?
The main thing
is that an easy question?
No, it is an easy question in the sense that the aluminum bottles, with the ones that I helped commercialize over 15 years ago, they cost 300% more than a standard can. Our technology is going to be less than 30% incremental cost. And that is the huge difference that is going to enable brands to be able to market and sell this to consumers and make it affordable to consumers. The issue has been with the aluminum bottle, it's only reserved for special channels that they sell it in, where you have beach accounts, where you have like ballparks or stadium. You don't generally see it on in your grocery retail store, and if you do, it's very limited, because it eats so much into the margins of the brand owners to be able to sell it competitive with the 16-ounce beer. So this will enable consumers to have all these benefits we talked about and not really be impacted by their wallet, like an aluminum bottle would be. The other thing is, aluminum bottles take a lot more aluminum to produce the same
definitely.
fill It's about 40% more aluminum. We're only adding we're adding less than 5% incremental, volume or I should say weight to the can by what we're introducing here. So it is much more economical and much more sustainable than the aluminum bottle. And consumer research that we've done, consumers like the idea that we're maintaining the format of a can because all the benefits of what we talked about, stackability, packing your cooler on the go with it. They like the idea that that's all still remains with the can with our technology, and they're not having to do anything different than they expect with the can from that perspective.
Right, and that was the answer that I was looking for because of your experience. You can compare the aluminum bottle against this, right? So at the end, what we will have is you have good, let's say, cheapened volume with this geometry. You have better recycling rates and better recycling, let's say, approaches because it's going to be simple for the recycling guys to recycle this type of container. Now, what is the next step? How far are you guys to implement this in the real market?
So we were selected by the 100 Plus Accelerator program, which was organized by AB InBev, the Coca-Cola Company, Colgate-Palmolive, and Unilever. And every year, this is their fifth cohort. Every year for the last 6 or so years, they've been looking at innovation in different categories, of course, but things that basically are able to effectively address their ESG target. And we applied for this program and were selected by AB InBev Coca-Cola for one program and then Colgate-Palmolive for the second. Now, of course, we've been working at developing this solution now for upwards of a decade. And us being accepted into this program speaks to what we've been able to succeed along with our development partner. But now we're in discussions with the brand owners, the people that actually have to look to make investment to adopt certain technology. With AB InBev and Coca-Cola, we're at the point where we're actually going to trial filling of the parts in process. Of course, this is extraordinarily low volume. We're looking at a few hundred cans per minute. Not 2,000 or 3,000, but we want to validate the ability to seam the product or process the product in the filling part. Remember, manufacturing of the cans is great, but you have paperweights if you can't fill them quickly. So we're looking to go ahead and accomplish that in order to have process-filled cans that we could put in front of consumers for quantitative consumer research. And we'll speak a little more to this. We've proven out resealability being a desirable through our own third-party conducted qualitative consumer research. And then obviously just Google it. Resealability in cans is the holy grail.
And brands that we've been working with have likewise already done their own testing and have likewise validated that there is a desire for this resealability for cans so we don't have any doubts about that. But one of the things too that we bring with our technology that's also unique is that when you open up that container, you've now converted that can, if it's a beverage, into a cup or a glass.
Right.
So now it's like drinking. It's actually something that no other beverage container can do today, is immediately buy a retail product, open it, and now you've converted from one form of what was a packaged container to get it to you to a drinking glass or a drinking cup. And there's a lot of benefits that come with the opportunity to be able to drink from a cup. You get the full aroma, the smell of the product, and a lot of your taste comes basically on what you smell. It's not what you actually taste on your tongue. So it enhances that large wide opening. You also have the opportunity to add ice to your drinks if it wasn't cooled down enough. You can add garnishes, limes, lemon,
little umbrellas,
whatever you want to do to dress it up if it's a cocktail type thing, or even add liquor to it if it's say a Coke, whatever it may be. But so it opens up a lot of other benefits to consumers that they haven't had the opportunity to experience with our technology, in addition to already getting the benefit of resealability.
So it's a can. It does everything a can is supposed to do, and it does it well. It's also a bottle. It reseals. Let's move on. But it's also a cup, and it does everything that we just brought up. It's a very compelling piece of packaging. Oh, and then also it recycles forever. I know that you wanted to ask a quick question. I just wanted to speak to the Accelerator's second program. We also engage with Colgate-Palmolive They own Hill Science Diet, which is a premium pet food brand. The samples that you see here in front of you are beverage. That's been the focus of our development getting up to this point. But starting with our engagement with Hill Science Diet and the rest of the industry, Stalling Machinery and Silgan Container, we are developing a food can. And so by the end of this year, we'll have that capability, and we're excited to engage where we stand with. But so now we're developing for beverage and food.
But hold on. What is a food can solution? Just give me like a taste about what it is.
Can reseal delivers resealability. Okay. That's why it's called can.
Complicated.
Right. Once you have that functionality, once you have the ability to screw things into the top of your can and take advantage of all the manufacturing efficiencies, et cetera, brought up, all of a sudden metal packaging becomes an option for certain use cases, sales channels, and even products that traditionally have only been able to be serviced by other material. If you want resealability, you have so many options. If you want to screw down a spray pump or a dispensing pump, you only have so many options. And I think here being able to screw things into your can allows us to get creative and start innovating. Cans have looked like cans for a long time. To answer your question, remember, the crux of the innovation are those threads on top of the can. Right. So what we're proposing to do with our partnership with Hill Science Diet, Colgate-Palmolive, is to develop a food can that doesn't look much different than a food can does today. And by that, what I mean is it'll have the full panel peel off. Okay. What's being suggested here is that we make cans that have that quick open functionality, but also have threading incorporated in. We're suggesting, and this is something that we will study along with Hills in consumer research, we're suggesting that the cans be sold with the threading, but no cap. You store your cans as long as they currently do. They ship the way they currently do. It's still a can, but the day you're ready to reseal it, there's reusable closures, plastic, of course, but high quality, maybe even dishwasher safe. And I think that you're probably thinking, babe, hold on a second. I have a half dozen of those in my drawer right now that I bought on the .com.
Right.
Right. The differentiator here is that you're snapping those on top of the can, and that doesn't guarantee you an air and liquid tight seal. We have the mechanical advantage of the threading. You could screw these suckers down tight, and they're screwed down tight. Like you screwed the cap.
Right.
That's the Colgate project that we're working on. They know it's desirable because this is specific for pet food, but that same can is for any kind of food application because there's really no difference between a pet food can and a food can at the day. But what this does is it enables dish out some of that food, seal it airtight, put it in the refrigerator, keep it in there and not stink up their whole refrigerator with dog food smell, and then be able to pull it back out and reuse it over a couple days time. So their consumer definitely sees and wants a need for that kind of airtight resealability.
Right. I love this approach because what you are giving to the market is a totally customer journey. I mean, at the end, the customer journey will give us the opportunity to have all this flexibility that we don't have right now with cans. And I think we are very used to cans. We love cans. Cans, we have beer, we have soda, we have everything, and we are very used to it. As you just said, couple of minutes ago, I mean, bottles are for, let's say, some kind of event or whatever that people need to pay a little bit more because they are more cost effective, right? Now, talking about can manufacturer, how are you positioning with those guys right now, and what is the strategy? Because at the end, okay, Coca-Cola and all these different companies, and I think it's great, but can manufacturers needs to be involved for sure. So what is the approach right now?
Yeah, and it is kind of a chicken and the egg thing when we talk about this, because we do need the brands and we need the volumes that they bring, because when we talk about investing into billions, you need one that is a big brand owner that's going to be vested in this to make that investment work for the can maker. On the other side, the brands want to know who that can maker is obviously going to be that's going to do this. So we are engaging with the largest can makers globally that are out there today. So that is your Arnox, your Balls, your Crown Cork Seals, Can Packs. And all four of those entities, what we're looking to do is to be able to engage with them, ultimately all of them. But where we're at this point in our development and completing our development work, we want to get to a point of doing a pilot manufacturing, and we need to get a minimal viable product available to do that. So we will partner with one of those four entities I just mentioned. We are negotiating with joint development arrangement with ourselves. Our main development partner has been Stali Machinery, who makes the equipment for making all these cans and parts, along with Novelis Aluminum, who is the world's largest can sheet supplier in the world. It has a long history and understanding of metallurgy and how cans are made and produced. They will also enhance our technology development here, and we will bring all those parties together to bring this to commercialization. And then once we've commercialized, the idea of our technology is we'll license it to all can makers globally. So everyone will have access to this. And what's been great about the engagements we've had with brand owners to date, the Coca-Colas and AB InBevs, you take those two companies alone, those 400 billion beverage cans that Dan referenced to, they're about 125 to 150 billion of that 400 billion, those two companies. So if we get them along, which we seem to have them coming along on this journey with us, the one thing that they've made clear, they don't want exclusivity rights on the technology either. They want this to be available to everyone within the industry.
Nice. That's nice.
And scalable. And that's huge. I've been in this industry, like I said, for 30 plus years, and everybody wants to get their hands on something and, basically corner it. But then it never gets that opportunity. What Dan talked about, like nourishing, getting it out of niche. That's where it gets a lot of innovation gets trapped, is in these niche. It may not even be niche. It's just that it never gets exposed to the day of light far enough that people in the industry can make enough investment to support it. And we're in a great place relative to industry support, both from the brands and the can makers to understand that need. And as Dan mentioned, we want this to be a platform for innovation. So we're trying to standardize this technology within the industry, because that's critical for this. When you make the kind of hundreds of millions of dollars of investments you're talking about to produce cans, you want standardization so that you can output those kind of value.
Definitely. Then let me ask you something. How no one had this idea before? I mean, it's very simple. Like me, I think it's like something that you will just, it's something simple. It's just so practical, so easy, but at the same time, it's not. Why? What do you think?
I don't have a great answer for that. I think I heard Elon Musk mention once that things are hard until they're invented, and then they're easy.
Yeah.
I think it came from him. If you look back in the past, there are things that humanity knew would never happen, right? We knew we were never going to fly. We knew we were never going to go to the moon. We knew a lot of things until we figured it out, and now we know different. And I can't speak to me coming up with a solution that looks like this. I can certainly, there have been people out there that might have thought about it and didn't have the luck. I mentioned luck earlier. Didn't have the luck at everything that a successful business requires for you to work through the IP and industry engage and people believing in you. Maybe nobody got to the point where I fortunately was blessed to be able to arrive at. I don't know. I fell in the shower and I hit my head and I came up with a flux capacitor. I'm not sure what inspired this.
But it's interesting because we get the comment all the time. It's like, why didn't anybody ever think of this before? But it is, and the thing with it is that simplicity is what makes it so opportunistic for us in terms of ability to take this scalability that we want to get it to. And that's what really drew me to come to work for Canovation, was this idea that, hey, this is a fairly simple idea. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of interesting. We've done consumer research and we get consumers that say, oh, this is a really nice fancy can, or somebody, or a brand owner may tell, and we're like, no, it's not that fancy. It really is
not fancy at all.
We really want this to be commoditized. But yet still be an innovation platform. And that combination is extremely rare. Yeah. Very rare.
I totally agree. And I'm really happy that you guys are pushing in this direction in an industry that's been the same for like forever, right? And maybe it's because of the simplicity of your innovation is why someone never said, oh, let's do it, because sometimes something that is very simple is very complicated to see. When something is very obvious, you don't see it because it's obvious, right? So maybe that's why. So to wrap up this episode, what is the future prospects and industry influence that we can expect from your side, guys? Because it's an innovation platform that you want to create. So I can assume that this is not the last project that we will see from you guys. Then we will see the food cans, but for sure, and I am seeing that you will have more like new generation coming from, whatever it is, and following your steps. What is the future that you are prospecting for the company and for your life?
Julio, you have assumed wisely. Yes, we do have additional innovation in the pipeline. We're focused on this now. There's actually adjunct technologies that are based off of what we showed today. And we're excited about the opportunities that we could have working along with the industry and what the customer thinks of it, Frank. I think also, to wrap up as well, I'm glad that we walk right through the sustainability conversation. I think there's a lot of that in the news and we really focused on what the industry is trying to do to be a participant in that conversation, right?
Right.
How can we make the world a better place? I'm a self-proclaimed tree hugger. Right. And I'm happy to be having this conversation and to have a solution instead of just bickering about the issue. But I'm also a consumer and I have engineering tendencies. And I think we need to look back at how civilization has benefited from the magical material which plastics are. You can do practically anything with plastics. And I think we need to remain conscious of that and remain pragmatic on how it is that we present solutions, because it would be irresponsible to simply eliminate plastics outright.
Definitely.
What we're doing here today is we're creating options that make certain single-use plastic avoidable. Why are we still going to use PET bottles if they could be avoided and the consumer could have all the functionality at the same price point or a similar price point with certain advantages? Why choose plastics? Because they're cheaper? Yeah, we could do better. We could do a little bit better. So we're to be clear, we're consumers too. I'm in product design. Plastics is a material that we point to all the time. We brought up Colgate Palmolive and Hill Science Diet. One of the options is reusable plastic closure. If we get around to ever having dispenser pumps and sprays, you can't make that out of CNC build aluminum. You make them out of plastic, but you stop making cheap plastic and you start making things that you could keep around and you could be happy to interact. Let's avoid the disposable economy. Let's look into reusing things, being more efficient with the things that we do, and just being better global citizens. That's my soapbox.
That's very deep. That's very deep.
Oh my God.
Where people can find you guys and all these big players, like let's say the aluminum can manufacturers, if they have some interest in your product, because as you just said before, you are not giving exclusivity to anyone. So the idea is to put this in every can manufacturing facility in the world, right? That's the idea. Where they can find you guys, how they can contact you guys. Tell us a little bit about this, because I think people that will see this episode, they will be very interested about how we can make this happen and how we can help these guys to push this through the market as fast as they can.
Yeah, probably, go onto our website, www.canovation.com. Would be the easiest way to get through. We have contact forms there that you can reach to us. Our contact details are on there. And there's a whole host of information that they can learn more about our product, but we would welcome anytime, anyone. The thing is that it's interesting, some of the people that we come across that, it's kind of like, do we really want to even bother to give a call over here? Because we got Coke and AB InBev that are talking to us, and
right.
It's like, but then it's like, no, we need to, because we're finding that even with some of these smaller individual brand owners that we sometimes contact, they have some incredible ideas, and we just kind of keep fostering that foundation for innovation. And with some of these guys, they're more nimble in some regards. So we may find ourselves moving much quicker with a smaller entity in some regards to getting some things out there. So we definitely welcome a conversation with anyone, whether it's in the recycling space or, we definitely see that aluminum going into the future is going to be much more competitive in the marketplace, because of guys like yourselves and others that are making these investments in secondary production for aluminum. And it's only going to help make this more economical and compete against plastics
Yep.
into the future. So we welcome any conversation, and we can leave our contact details with you too. If anyone wants to contact you and get in touch with us, please let us know.
Can't you do what they do on YouTube and like put her contact number in the bottom?
Oh, I will do. I have no issue.
I'm
We will do.
joking.
No, on the description for sure. We will put the website and everything. I will be more than happy to use this platform for you guys to have more contact and more, let's say, views on the people that is interested in the sustainability, recycling rates, customer experience, and customer journey. Because at the end, customers are the foundation of every economy and every industry. If we can please them, we will be more able to create more good things like things that you are creating right now. So I am really happy that you made the time to be here with us. For me, this was almost an hour and was amazing, very funny, and a lot of knowledge going there, because I think innovation is something that we really need to achieve always. We need to teach the young generations that innovation is always welcome in every stage of our life. So guys, Dan, Jeff, I thank you so much for your time. And I am sure that this is the first time, but it's not going to be the last one. We will get in touch to talk about the crazy ideas that you will bring into the market. So thank you so much. And let's see what's coming.
Dirty Scrap Podcast.